the Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 27th chapter. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene called Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head, they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Word of God, word of life. My name is Simon, a Jew from Cyrene, the capital city of the Roman province of Cyrenaica in North Africa. But I wasn't important. I was just visiting Jerusalem for the Passover and minding my own business when I got caught up in circumstances and events which changed my life. It all just sort of happened to me. It literally came out of the blue. As I said, I was in Jerusalem minding my own business. I had always dreamed of coming to Jerusalem for Passover. I had just arrived when I heard that there was some kind of demonstration going on in the city. The crowds were becoming unruly. And if there is anything that I know about the Romans, as they do not like disorder and unrest, it's like if they catch a whiff of civil unrest, they will bring down the brutal hammer of the Roman hammer of Roman power abruptly, quickly, brutally. And they really don't care if innocent bystanders get hurt in the process. Oh, I wanted to avoid the crowds and any potential confrontation, but my plans quickly crumbled. The street was filled with people, many cheering and shouting at a parade of Roman soldiers that was coming down the street. At first, I couldn't see what all the commotion was all about, but then I saw him. Another Roman prisoner who was being led out of the city to that grisly place of execution, Golgotha, the place of the skull, as the locals like to refer to it. I heard some of the crowd call out his name. I'd never heard of this guy before. Jesus, the Nazarene? Most of the voices were mocking him. But there were a few women along the roadside who were weeping. I did not know. It almost turned my stomach to look at him. He had been beaten to a pulp, like most criminals sentenced by Rome to die by crucifixion. He had to carry his own cross to his place of execution. The Roman mind. It added only further humiliation to the death sentence. I had seen such crucifixions all over the empire, even in Cyrene, my home. And believe me, Rome took pride in publicly humiliating anyone who dared to stand up to the empire. And carrying your own cross to the place of execution was like tightening the noose around your own neck, or mixing your own poison before drinking it, or sharpening the knife the executioner will use to behead you. I could not help but wonder what he had done to deserve such a fate. I picked up from some in the crowd that he was accused of insurrection and stirring up the crowds. Others mocked him for pretending to be some kind of king. Oh, and I know that Rome has a very short fuse when it comes to any possible threat to its power. They would never tolerate anyone but Caesar as king. And if Jesus had started to talk about being a king, no wonder this was happening to him. It was apparent to me that he was in trouble, deep trouble. You could just see the exhaustion as he stumbled and repeatedly fell to the ground, unable to carry his own cross. He was just too weak, too beaten to go any further. But the soldiers are not going to let him die there on the street. This was all about public humiliation. They had to get him to the Golgotha, where they could lift him up on that cross for all the world to see and to cringe in the face of Roman power. The captain, leading that parade, started to look around at the crowd. And I knew what they wanted, and I did not want to have any part of it. So I looked away, trying to avoid any eye contact. I wanted to slip away into the crowd, but with all those people pressing in on me, there was no place to go. And then I heard the voice I feared. Hey, you over there! Stand up straight. Don't think you can hide. And before I knew it, 2 soldiers had grabbed my arms and dragged me to Jesus. And the captain said, you look strong. You're not going to turn down this wonderful opportunity to serve Rome. You pick up the cross. You carry it for this Jesus scumbag. You follow him out of the city to the place of the skull. Have you ever been caught up and trapped in circumstances that were beyond your control? Have you ever been forced to do something that you would never have chosen to do? And then, after the fact, after all is said and done, you discover that what you thought was a curse was actually a blessing. I was compelled and forced to carry Jesus' cross. I did not want to do it. I just wanted to hide in the crowd. I did not want to be involved in this mess. I was afraid of what might happen. I was afraid of what the soldiers might do to me if I had tried to run away. I just wanted to be safe and take care of myself. But circumstances would not permit it. Fate would have it otherwise. And yes, now I can say, God had something else in mind for me. What happened that dark and confusing day forever changed my life. I did not realize it at the time. I just did what I had to do to carry the cross. I stood there watching that crucifixion. I saw him die, and I saw his friends carry him away for burial. It was all so sad, so ugly, so brutal. Once again, Rome had the last word. Conform, submit, obey, or die. But now, in hindsight, because of everything that has happened to me, I can see, yes, that it was a blessing and not a curse. An opportunity, not a burden. A privilege, not a penalty. To get to carry Jesus' cross. I got to be part of the greatest act of love that the world has ever seen. Within days, I began to hear the rumors. And then I met some of his disciples. And they said, can you imagine it? That Jesus was alive and they had seen him. And some had touched the wounds in his hands and his side. They said, God had raised him from the dead. They said that he was indeed the one for whom Israel had been waiting all these years. They said, and I could see it in them, they said that they now had a peace and a joy in their hearts that they had never had before. And they said it all with such joy and conviction. The way they loved and cared for one another, unafraid of what others might think of them, was simply and frankly amazing. I was stunned. And then, the biggest surprise, the biggest shock, they welcomed me, of all people, into their midst. And I was the one who had helped execute Jesus by carrying his cross so that the brutal Romans could have their way. I was the coward. The blood was on my hands. They should have despised me. But instead, they forgave me. In the name of this crucified, risen one, Jesus. It changed my life forever. Today, I am Simon of Cyrene, a leader in the church of Cyrenaica. Two of my sons, Alexander and Rufus, are also leaders in the church. They have traveled all over the Mediterranean world carrying the good news that Jesus wanted all to hear. That day in Jerusalem, I was forced to carry Jesus' cross. following Jesus to that cursed place of the skull was the last thing I ever wanted to do. But now it has all changed. God has used this tragedy to save my life. For today, I have discovered what it means once again to carry Jesus' cross. You see, my priorities have utterly changed. Life is no longer about me, about Simon of Cyrene and what I can get. No, now, all around me, every day, I see opportunities to care for others. And when the opportunity presents itself, to tell them about the hope that is within me. I did not know it at the time. But now those famous words that Jesus once spoke to his disciples are true. Even of me. And my brothers and sisters, they are also true of you. Why? Because like that day, Jesus has interrupted your life and called you, of all people, to follow him. Remember those words? If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. On that day in Jerusalem, that day of crucifixion, words like this struck fear in my heart. But now, like I discovered that day, they are words of promise and joy. So, come, join me. Let us carry Jesus' cross.